Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be covering the use of viscometers or the Visco in the adhesive industry. The adhesive industry is a very wide industry. It includes things like resins, epoxy, acrylic, adhesives, film adhesive, emulsions. All of these are made in different ways and have a different manufacturing process, and even the raw materials are totally different or can be totally different. But one thing that is common between all these is that viscosity is a very important factor in the manufacturing of these. The property of adhesives is what determines the application that is going to be used in. So when you're manufacturing a specific adhesive, the properties of that adhesive will be chosen by the user. It will be studied by the user and see if it applies for what they need it for. One of these things is the viscosity. For example, low viscosity adhesives are high flow, are thin, and can be applied rapidly to form a thin coating. They can also get into tight spaces and crevices if you need to. So if you need an adhesive that needs to get into little spaces, spaces that you don't have access to, but you want to make sure that the glue or the adhesive gets to that space, then you can use a low viscosity adhesive. On the other hand, high viscosity adhesive don't spread as well, and they don't create a thin film either. But these also have their use. These types of high viscous adhesive, they stay in place. So wherever you apply it, they stay there, or mostly stay there. And they don't move from there where they're applied. This is good for a few things. If you're installing something vertical, you need the adhesives to stay there, stay where you applied it. Then high viscous adhesive is a good type of adhesive for this application. Or if you're putting the adhesive in an area where the surroundings are sensitive, like electronic board, where you have other things around it that if the adhesive touches it, it can ruin it, then you want an adhesive that's high viscous or is not runny, that will stay where you put it. Viscosity does play a very big part of as one of the properties of the adhesive. Okay. Another thing when manufacturing adhesives, sometimes you want to add extra properties to the adhesive. Properties not necessarily for the adhesion, but most for other types of properties or industries that might be needed. For example, you want to add thermal conductivity for a specific application, or heat dissipation, or machinability. Sometimes you need to add corrosion resistance to the adhesive, or even make it flame retardant. And so the material that you add to the adhesive to change these or to add these properties can also change the viscosity. So let's say you have a adhesive with the properties you need, or the base properties you need, but you want to add thermal conductivity to it. The material that you use to add thermal conductivity to the adhesive can alter the viscosity of it. And if you were planning on using that viscosity, then adding this thermal conductivity has changed that. So you might need to use a different material that will add thermal conductivity but not change the viscosity. So when you're adding these extra properties or these special properties to your adhesive, you can use a viscometer to make sure to monitor how it's changing the viscosity, if it's changing it, so you can be readily available for the end user on the MSDS report that you need to write up for them. Okay. Now, Atago has two main types of viscometers. One is the one to the left is the Visco. This is a small and portable viscometer. The one to the right is the Visco BL. It's a benchtop viscometer, so it's more traditional. By traditional, I mean that it uses 500 milliliters of sample, and also the Spindle types are very well known in the market. The Visco uses very little sample. It uses either 50 milliliters or 100 milliliters, so it uses a lot less sample, which creates less waste of your raw material, less waste of your adhesive. Later we're going to see more in detail about how to use these with adhesive or epoxy or different resins. Okay, and if you need to measure your adhesive, your resin, your epoxy at specific temperatures, each of these two models also have a temperature controller option for them. So the Visco, if you get it with a Visco package E, it comes with a temperature controller option, and the Visco BL also has a package E that you can add the temperature controller option. This option can be added after you purchase the instrument. So you can purchase the viscometer, you try it, you use it, then later you find out, hey, I need to control the temperature of the sample while I'm reading it. You can always add this package later. Okay, so you gotta choose the right spindle, beaker, and RPM. This section here applies mostly or only for the Visco, not the Visco BL, because the Visco BL, the one to the right, uses 500 milliliter of sample only. So there's no point in choosing a different volume or container because that's the only one it uses. The Visco, though, on the other hand, you have two options. You have the one to the left, which is a 50 milliliter container, and the one to the right, which is 100. So depending on the viscosity of your adhesive, if you have a higher viscosity, then you want to use the larger container, the 100 milliliter container. If you have low viscosity, then you want to use the small container, the 50 milliliter container. Okay. Also, depending on the viscosity range of your product, that's you're gonna have to combine the containers we spoke about here with the spindle sizes and the RPM. You want to get the torque around 20. For me personally, 20 and above is good torque. So as long as you're getting 20 above torque with a certain RPM and a spindle, then that's the area you need to be at to get the right accuracy or result of your viscosity of your adhesive. Okay, now we have a couple of videos, well, a video here to show you how to use both of these instruments that we just saw for adhesive, for the adhesive industry. So here in the first video, we have a cup adapter. The cup adapter was designed for when you have adhesive that will stick to glass or damage glass or start hardening when they come in contact with metal or glass. You can use disposable cups like paper cups or plastic cups, and this cup adapter will hold it in place while you measure the viscosity of it. So the size of the paper cups or plastic cups that you're going to use be the one about 100, 120 milliliter volume cups. Okay. The way you use it is you just put the cup in the cup holder and you pour your product. This one that we have in the video is UV resin, so it's mostly used for 3D printers and is cured with UV. It's one of our customers. And then previously we already chose we know what the spindle type is, the RPM. So for this particular range of viscosity, we chose the A1 spindle, and we already also chose the volume because the line of the sample should be to the second guideline. So these spindles, as you can see, there has 3 different guidelines at the base, and you want to put your sample, or you want to put enough sample so it reaches the middle guideline. Okay. And here, this option here is your cup adapter. Okay. Here is the glass beaker. This is the 100 milliliter beaker. We also have a 50 milliliter beaker. It's not in the video, but it's also here. It's also available with the Visco. The glass beaker, like I mentioned before, is for higher viscosity samples. The 50 milliliter beaker is for lower viscosity samples. So you also fill it up to an area where we know it will get to the second line again of the spindle, of the guide on the spindle. Okay, and we already have set up the it's an A1L spindle. RPM is 30. We press start, it starts spinning, starts measuring resistance, and it turns that into viscosity. So the A2L spindle at 60 RPM creates a torque of 40, and this sample has a viscosity of 2,673 MPas. And this option is now for, the model that we've seen so far is the Visco. From this point on is the Visco BL. So remember I mentioned before that the Visco BL uses 500 milliliter sample or container. That's what you're seeing here, basically. Sorry. That's what you're seeing here, 500 milliliter beaker filled up. I went a little too much there, but I took out some. And this is the bench sub viscometer. So we lowered the instrument, attach a spindle. This spindle is for high viscosity products, and we have a different resin here. Now, so we gotta make sure that we lower it so it gets to the second guideline. And then the settings here is 100 RPM, and we're using the L4 spindle. It's giving us a viscosity of so L4 spindle, 100 RPM is giving us torque of about 51%, and the viscosity is 3,023 CP. And that's it. That is how you use our viscometers for adhesive. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. We have free demo units in many countries for you to try out, and yeah, contact us. Thank you very much.